It never got better than this. The MVP race of the 1987-88 season consisted of the league's greatest players at their peak. Those in the top 5 were fighting for the top spot. This resulted in the most competitive and legendary MVP race. We're going to discuss the regular season performances of Clyde Drexler, Charles Barkley, Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, and Michael Jordan. We're going to start with the 5th place and finish with the MVP winner. Make sure to comment on your take on who was the most deserving. This was the moment Clyde Drexler was waiting for. He was given the opportunity to extend his role as the team's best player. They made the decision to bench Kiki Vandeweghe after 7 games. He was Portland's leading scorer for the previous 3 seasons, and he helped lead the Blazers to 49 wins in the prior year. However, a change was needed after they lost 5 straight games early in the season. They decided it was a better idea to promote Jerome Kersey to the starting lineup and let Kiki provide instant offense from the bench. Clyde proved that they were in much better hands with him as their team leader. Instead of building the team around a player that didn't excel in anything other than scoring, they now revolved around one of the game's best all-around players. It's all in the numbers. He averaged 27 points on 51% shooting, 6.6 rebounds, 5.8 assists, and 2.5 steals per game. For the season, he finished 5th in steals and 6th in points. He was 25 years old at the time, so he was at his peak athletically. He remains one of the most exciting finishers the league has ever seen. He's nicknamed Clyde the Glide because it legitimately seemed like he was gliding in midair. This was a big part of his game. Once he became a more reliable outside shooter, he became one of the top scoring threats in the league. The biggest thing that allowed him to increase his scoring average by nearly 6 points was his improved jump shot. Teams now had to respect his outside shooting, which opened up even more opportunities for his exciting finishes at the rim. As much as everyone talks about his athleticism and scoring ability, his defense is what often gets overlooked. He had everything a player needs to be a master at basketball thievery. He has long arms, fast hands, and was an expert at stealing the ball off the dribble. He was also someone that was one of the best rebounders and playmakers to ever play the shooting guard position. What helped him gather so many rebounds was the fact that he was strictly a forward during his college career. At the forward position, you had to be an elite rebounder if you wanted to play that role effectively. He was able to master that skill. Then when the Blazers drafted him, they envisioned him being the shooting guard for the team. Now he had to shift his attention to handling the ball and passing a lot more, which allowed him to be one of the most versatile players in the league. As Pat Riley mentioned to the LA Times during the 1986 All-Star Game, Clyde can function very creatively as a forward, off guard, or point guard. He's a very good athlete, and we've all seen him grow in terms of confidence and all-around play. End of quote. So in 5 instances, you had Clyde Drexler taking over on offense and scoring over 40 points. When you needed him to get everyone involved, there were 5 other instances where he dished out 10 assists or more. Then, if you needed Drexler to dominate the boards, there were 13 times when he pulled down 10 rebounds or more. There was even one game where he had 10 offensive rebounds against the Dallas Mavericks. And if you needed him to do it all, there was a time when he did this to Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls.
Porter brings it down, dumps it for Drexler for the dunk. He's got down to the left. Drexler, quick drive, baseline left, reverse layup is in. Running out of the break. On the move is Kersey, dishes for Drexler for the dunk. Wide left. Outside pass, another steal and breakaway for Clyde Drexler. There's a 2-hand dunk. Kersey into the front court. Right side Drexler shoots the long one on Jordan. It's in.
He ended the game with 42 points on 55% shooting, 9 assists, 8 steals, 5 rebounds, and 1 block. It was performances like these that allowed the Blazers to win 53 games. It was their first 50-win season since 1978, when Bill Walton was playing with the team. You can say that this was the unofficial beginning of the Clyde Drexler era of the Portland Trail Blazers. He ended up producing a career high in win shares and PER. He also recorded the second highest points per game average and Valley over replacement player rating. This was his coming out party. We all think of his 1992 season as his peak, but in this season, he was in his prime athletically and he recorded arguably his best numbers. For someone that is easily one of the top 50 players ever, we have to give this forgotten season its proper due. This was the beginning of a new era in Philadelphia. Dr. J had just retired, and Moses Malone was now playing for the Washington Bullets. This franchise that is full of rich history and tradition now belonged to Charles Barkley. The fans of Philadelphia have been very fortunate to have witnessed some of the greatest and most unique players, but there was just something different about Charles. It was just as Julius Erving once said about him. He's able to do things that guards do, that forwards do, that centers do, that coaches do, and even things that popcorn vendors do. End of quote. That was showcased to the fullest extent this season. This will always be remembered as his breakout year. His level of play was so dominant that he was already considered a serious MVP candidate, and that's despite the Sixers' losing record. For the season, he averaged 28.3 points on 59% shooting, 11.9 rebounds, 3.2 assists, 1.3 blocks, and 1.3 steals per game. That is his career high in points, and the fact that he nearly averaged 60% from the field indicates how dominant of a scorer he was. For example, this is what writer Sally Jenkins said about his performance for the Washington Post that season. Barkley is now mentioned as belonging to the handful of all-time unstoppable players in the game. It is well documented that he once moved the 2,000-pound basket 6 inches to the right with a slam. While he's one of the most physical players in the league, he is also surprisingly nimble. With a 37.5-inch vertical leap, he has a multi-dimensional, sometimes guard-like quality. End of quote. Their eyes were not deceiving them. A player that size is not supposed to completely control the boards and score that efficiently at the power forward position. But the combination of his strength, speed, leaping abilities, and aggressiveness made him an unstoppable force. It's like he was actively trying to break down the rim. But he wasn't just providing breathtaking highlights. The numbers confirm that he was more than deserving of being in the conversation for the best player in the world. Here's where he ranked in various statistical categories that season. Second in win shares, second in win shares per 48 minutes, second offensive rating, third in field goal percentage, third in PER, third in offensive box plus minus, fourth in scoring, fourth in value over replacement player rating, fourth in box plus minus, and sixth in rebounds. As it stands today, only Shaq and Giannis has been able to shoot a higher field goal percentage while averaging over 28 points per game. When you look at some of his performances from that season, the comparison to Shaq and Giannis are valid. He had a total of 7 games where he scored over 40 points. In 2 of those games, he shot over 70% from the field. But his most impressive performance came against the Washington Bullets. That's when he did this.
Nice steal. Robinson ignites it. Great pass. Wingate to Barkley, and there's another. There's 3 men on Barkley. He burrows his way up, and Ben Coleman's got it. To Barkley.
Great pass.
Charles. Oh, yes! Ben adjusting his ice. Barkley. Gotten rid of that.
Good pass.
Barkley again. They can't control him in there.
He ended the game with 42 points on 83% shooting, 15 rebounds, and 2 assists. The numbers in the eye test say that he was playing near the same level as the NBA's Big Three: Magic, Bird, and Jordan. Unfortunately, he didn't have the pieces around him to succeed. There were a lot of injuries, player movement, and a coaching change that doomed Philadelphia's chances of reaching the postseason. They had Andrew Toney, who played only 29 games, Cliff Robinson missed 20 games, and Mike Kaminsky missed 37 games. Those final 2 players were the 2 other main scoring options for Philly. It was as Charles mentioned to reporters, they were just a bad team that was full of wimps and whiners. But don't worry, he can utter those things because, as he said, they're true. But I never say guys' names. When I criticize, I leave it up to the individual to clean up his own house. Classic Charles. Since he was in that situation, he took it upon himself to increase his scoring load. He did a tremendous job of carrying this talentless team, and it almost paid dividends. Believe it or not, they're only 2 games back from the 8th seed. But they had fallen behind too much before they made a nice little run at the end of the season. The rest of the league was very fortunate that Philadelphia was in a transitional period, and they couldn't build a formidable team around him. They would have been in big trouble if this guy had the pieces around him to win. The 1987 season for Magic Johnson was legendary. Many basketball historians consider it to be the greatest season by any point guard. Then he led the Lakers to one of the most dominant playoff runs by any team. He topped it all off by making the game-winning shot in Game 4 against the Boston Celtics, and later winning his 3rd Finals MVP. At that moment, he snatched the greatest player in the world title from Larry Bird. This was now his league. That couldn't be disputed, even if his numbers went down slightly. The main difference was that in 1987, Magic was more aggressive in looking for his shots. He averaged 23.9 points per game. Now let's look at what he averaged for 1988. 19.6 points on 49% shooting, 11.9 assists, 6.2 rebounds, and 1.6 steals per game. He averaged about 3 shots less a game, which means that he went back to his preferred style of play, and that's getting others involved. He lives to make everyone else better, and his teammates benefited tremendously. Take for example, Byron Scott. He averaged a career high of 21.7 points per game on 53% shooting. He earned the reputation of being one of the best outside shooters in the league, and that opened up the floor for Magic and James Worthy. Now the Lakers seemed even more unbeatable. Take for example what he did against the Boston Celtics. This was a rematch of their classic final series, and he had a memorable performance.
Comes Green running. 3-on-3, what a pass. Cooper. Magic shot clock to 4, to 3. Magic Johnson, oh my. 4-3, give him the triple. He missed the shot. He shot it with his left hand. Johnson over Parrish. He hits it. The Lakers win. Pat Riley is so happy.
The fans at the Boston Garden had PTSD after what he did to them in the finals. It's just another example of how clutch he was. He ended the game with the vintage stat line of 18 points on 55% shooting, 17 assists, 8 rebounds, and 2 steals. That was the beginning of a 15-game winning streak. Shortly after that, they had a 10-game winning streak. There was legitimate talks that the Lakers could beat the record for the most wins in a season. Unfortunately, they were brought back to earth. Magic got hurt with a strained right groin that sidelined him for 10 games. The Lakers were adequate without their floor general, but they couldn't maintain their strong play once Michael Cooper got hurt. This is how Johnson described how much Cooper's absence hurt the team according to Sports Illustrated. With Coop and me both out, that's like missing 6 guys because we play so many positions. End of quote. That stretch of games reiterated how important Magic was to the functionality of this team. Sports writer Bob Ryan made this observation in one of his columns after the Lakers won the title. It was ugly last season when Johnson was troubled with a groin injury. The Lakers went through 19 games, winning 9 and losing 10. Suddenly, they were just like any other team, losing in Sacramento and Phoenix and frustrating their coach with subpar play. It all comes down to winning, doing the things which makes his team better than the other teams, and it all comes down to how ineffective the Lakers are when he can't play. End of quote. That's what sets him apart from everyone else. Even after winning 4 championships and 6 finals appearances, 3 finals MVP and a regular season MVP, he still played with the same energy as if he had none of those accolades. He never seemed bored or content after all those years. For example, this is what the New York Times wrote about his extraordinary play that year. Bird may be a more accurate outside shooter, Dominique Wilkins a higher leaper, and Michael Jordan more spectacular, but none of them can match Magic Johnson's versatility or inventiveness. Johnson is a point guard, the basketball equivalent of a quarterback. His ability to determine in an instant how a play might develop, by now it's a reflex, allows him to take maximum advantage of his teammates' extraordinary quickness. End of quote. So forget the numbers that he put up, which were fantastic, even though it seems like the standard Magic Johnson season. It's the fact that the Lakers won over 60 games for a 4th straight year. We understand that they had a lot of great pieces that allowed them to have the best record in the league. That's very true, but they would have never experienced such overwhelming success without their leader. In fact, they were the only team that season that won over 60 games, and they were looking to make history by being the first team to repeat as champions since the Boston Celtics in 1969. What this season reminds us is that out of all the adjectives you could use to describe Magic Johnson, the word winner is what comes to mind the most. You are looking at Larry Bird's finest offensive season of his career. Keep in mind that he was 31 years old and he was playing in his 9th season. Even though he had nothing left to prove, he still made history. For the season, he averaged 29.9 points on 53% shooting, 9.3 rebounds, 6.1 assists, and 1.6 steals per game. He was only 5 points away from averaging 30 points for the first time in his career. On top of that, he is the sixth player to average at least 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists for a season. But that's not all. He was able to reach the 50-40-90 club. He averaged 41% from the 3 and 92% from the free throw. What makes that even more impressive is that he has the second highest points per game average from any player with those shooting numbers. Steph Curry in the 2016 season is in first place. Now consider this next interesting stat. Larry Bird averaged 3.1 3-point attempts that season. The player that is in third place, Kevin Durant, averaged 4.1 3-point attempts in 2013. The 2007 season from Dirk Nowitzki is in the top 5, and he only averaged 2.2 3-point attempts. So we're not going to discount this achievement just because he wasn't shooting 15 threes per game. At the time, he was the only player to ever shoot better than 50% from the field and 90% from the free throw, let alone shoot that efficiently from behind the arc. There is a reason why so many basketball historians insist on including Bird among the greatest shooters of all time. The reality is that he made that shot popular. He turned into such a dangerous weapon, and after what he did in the 3-point shootout, there is no question who was the 3-point king. But the best example of his legendary shooting abilities came against the Dallas Mavericks when he converted on 7 of 10 threes. At the time, that was tied for the second most 3-pointers made in a game. Imagine the damage he could have done if he had the green light to shoot as many threes as he wanted. Speaking of individual performances, there were 11 total games where Bird scored over 40 points. He shot over 60% from the field in 9 of those instances. His most entertaining game came early in the season against the Washington Bullets. That's when he did the impossible.
They got the ball back. Bird is driving on a good pass by Ainge. Bird hits the layup. DJ brings it up. 72-66 to score. All right, now underneath it goes, and Bird sideline it is Darren Day. In the pivot it goes quickly over to Bird. He ducks his head. He throws it in. Crowd is standing up. It goes now to Bird. Bird goes up top. And a 3-point field goal for Bird. 4 seconds left. He hits it. And where do we go? It's going to go to Bird. He's got a shot. Get it. It is good. It's a 3-point field goal. And that's it. It's all over.
He ended the game with 47 points on 66% shooting, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, and 2 steals. His other notable performance came against the Indiana Pacers when he recorded 42 points on 63% shooting, 20 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 2 blocks. Since 1960, he is only the 5th small forward to record over 40 points and 20 rebounds in a game. That exclusive list includes Elgin Baylor, Dave DeBusschere, John Drew, and Larry Keenan. As you can see, he is the last small forward to accomplish this feat. It was extraordinary to see him at that stage of his career to peak offensively. It was reported that he changed his body in the summer in order to make himself stronger and quicker. If it wasn't for his refusal to be content with all of his accomplishments, the Celtics would have struggled so much. This team was starting to show its age. For example, Dennis Johnson and Danny Ainge were suffering through back problems. Bill Walton missed the entire season due to a foot injury. Robert Parrish was limited due to a banged-up knee, and Kevin McHale was declining. That was probably because, he played the entire 1987 playoffs with a broken foot. To make matters worse, their bench could be accurately described as non-existent. It was up to Larry to carry this team offensively, and he produced his greatest offensive numbers out of necessity. The Celtics finished with the second best record in the league despite all those problems. It makes you wonder what kind of stats he could have recorded if he had more of a scorer's mentality. There's no question that this should be included among the greatest individual seasons in league history. In just about any other season, he wins the MVP hands down. But falling in second place to Michael Jordan is nothing to be ashamed of. From the outside looking in, it seemed like he had many more years left of playing at an MVP level. He was going to come back better than ever before. But his body shut down on him. In the following season, he played 6 games before he was diagnosed with bone spurs in both of his Achilles. There have been so many players who were never the same after suffering 1 Achilles injury. Now imagine coming back from 2. The prime of his career ended right then and there, and he would never be the same. But just remember, he was still finding ways to get better before his body broke down. It makes you wonder how many records he could have broken if Father Time hadn't paid him an early visit. Really, there's Michael, and then there's everybody else. Those words were uttered by Magic Johnson, according to writer Bob Bryant in his 1988 column. Although he was on his way to winning his 5th title, he was forced to recognize that Michael Jordan was in a class to himself. For those who make the claim that the only reason that he won all his titles and MVPs was that he played in the less competitive 90s era, check out the competition for the 1988 MVP race. Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, who averaged his career high in points, Isaiah Thomas, Hakeem Olajuwon, Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Dominique Wilkins, and Clyde Drexler. They were all in their prime, and they all played the full season. They are all considered by many as top 50 players, and Jordan was clearly a step above all of them. Keep in mind that this was before he was considered untouchable by the NBA media. He started getting that kind of respect when he started winning titles. Even during that time, when players needed to pay their dues before winning such a prestigious award, they recognized that what they were watching was special. All we have to point to is the multitude of records that he broke. He became the first and only player to win the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, and scoring title in the same season. He is only one of 2 players to win the scoring and steals title in the same year. He has the highest win shares by any player since the merger. He has the highest value or replacement player rating of all time. This is only the 2nd time that players average over 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. He's one of 4 players to record over 200 steals and 100 blocks in a season, and he has the highest field goal percentage by any player that's averaged over 35 points. Statistically speaking, this is the greatest season in modern day history. Notice that he has 9 total categories where he ranks in the top 10 all time. What makes Jordan such a mystical character is that his actual performances were even more impressive than what the numbers say. For example, this is what Indiana Pacers coach Jack Ramsey said about him that season. Quote, "I think he is the best offensive player that I've ever seen. Just creatively with the ball, he's probably the best ever. When he gets going to the basket, he's tough because he's in the air. It's tough to defend a player in the air. You're not going to block his shot." End of quote. This is the same person that coached against Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Jerry West, Elgin Baylor, and Dr. J. He was more than qualified to make those remarks. That creativity is what allowed him to score at will. There were 4 games that he scored over 50 points. His season high came against the eventual Eastern Conference champions, Detroit Pistons.
He'll be 32 years old later this month. Jordan turning into a one-point, fighting through nicely is Vinnie Johnson. Jordan off balance, and it is a 3-point game. Jordan spins and deals. Green. Jordan. There's Jordan. Now, we mentioned that would be one of the defensive matchups. The bigger forward Rodman against Jordan.
He recorded 59 points on 78% shooting, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. According to Sports Illustrated, Chuck Daly mentioned that they made up their minds right then and there that they needed to commit to a total team effort to stop him. In other words, the Jordan rules were in the works. The Celtics also didn't have any answers for him. He scored 50 points on nearly 60% shooting in the Boston Garden. Then there were 2 other games where he scored over 40 points. If those 2 teams couldn't stop him, the rest of the league were even more helpless. His performance art on the offensive end is what made him one of the most recognized athletes in the world. But his defensive abilities were finally getting the recognition it always deserved. He averaged career highs in steals and blocks. In fact, this was the season where he recorded the most blocks by a guard. No guard has been able to record over 131 total blocks, or 1.6 blocks per game. That season, he had more blocks than 16 of the starting centers in the league. Then we have what the Chicago Tribune wrote about Michael's defensive play that year. Quote, When it comes to defense, Jordan has been assigned to the opposition's top scorer in critical situations. He has successfully defended offensive threats such as Charles Barkley, Alex English, Isaiah Thomas, Adrian Dantley, Mark Price, and Dominique Wilkins." End of quote. At the time, no one was questioning how immensely valuable he was on defense. That has only been questioned until just recently. It has been reported that the Bulls stat keepers would reward him with steals or blocks that he never made. This has caused some to question if he was truly deserving of winning the Defensive Player of the Year award. But here's the reality of the situation. In 1986, when he missed nearly 80% of the season, the Bulls had the worst defensive rating in the league. In the following year, they jumped all the way up to 11th. In 1988, they had the third best defensive rating. Who deserves the bulk of the credit for that improvement? The player that led his team in steals and blocks, and that was a 6'6" shooting guard. Let's keep in mind that players such as Scottie Pippen and Horace Grant were rookies. They were coming off the bench. This team relied heavily on Michael on both ends of the floor. On offense, there was no one else that averaged over 13 points that played more than 30 games. This was still very much a one-man team, and they were still able to win 50 games. It's no wonder that he was awarded the MVP in one of the most competitive races ever. Although the NBA world was used to seeing him perform at this level in the regular season, it was obvious that this team was not ready to compete against a championship caliber team. Michael's scoring was only going to get them so far. That might have played a role in what he was going to do next. But what about you all? Do you think they got the top 5 players right for the MVP? Who would have been your vote? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.